Om Saraswati Namaha. Om Ma Andal Namo Namaha. My name is Balaji, and this video has to do with the controversy that has erupted after Mr. Vairamuthu spoke what he spoke. But before that, a bit of an introduction about myself. I am an MBA from IIM-A, passed out in 1988. I have held very senior management positions in prestigious corporate houses like ING Vysya and Reliance. And for the last 7 years, I have been on my own. I am a financial consultant, and I also teach in prestigious business schools in Bangalore like Ramaya Institute of Management Sciences, Symbiosis, and sometimes I take some classes in IIM Bangalore as well. And I teach subjects in the area of finance, operations research, economics, and maths. The introduction is over. Now we will come down to the agenda. The agenda has to do with what Mr. Vairamuthu has said, and consequent which there have been many controversies. Now, at the end of the controversy, the controversy is going on, but when Vairamuthu tendered something that looked like a regret, it was rather mischievously worded. The reason why I say that is that he says that he is rationally correct, but the emotional outburst on account of what he has said has been unprecedented, and consequent to that he is tendering an apology just to assuage the feelings of those who have been hurt. Basically what he implies is he is right, he is rationally correct, he cannot be intellectually challenged, but since there is an emotional outburst, meaning emotion is divide operation, and consequent to that since people have been hurt, he is tendering an apology, meaning that those who have been hurt are incapable of understanding him intellectually. That is the reason why I gave an introduction about myself, so that you understand that we can refute him as intellectually as he can expect us to. So now, we'll come down to the controversy per se. It revolves around three things. One is the particular words that he has used, that he has chosen to use. I would say mischievously, but whatever it is. The word that he has used. And second, that he has quoted from a reference with respect to Andal's birth and upbringing. And third has to do with whether Periyalvar followed Yappi Ilakkanam or not. So let us get down to each one of those points. One is the quotation. Since I teach marketing research, I can sort of state with certain level of confidence as to how research should be conducted and how research should be quoted. It is said very clearly that before one makes a quotation which is acceptable scientifically, because these guys, they are scientific, right? They are rational, right? Let us refute them rationally, scientifically. Scientifically, before anything is quoted, three things are absolutely mandatory. That is, the reference should be one, it should be based on multiple sources. Second, it should be based on independent sources. And third, it should be based on closer or contemporary sources. Let me give an example for each one. Multiple sources. For example, if Ravana were to write a book on Rama, it will be utter trash. It will be completely full of falsehoods. It will only depict Rama in an extremely negative light. So, if anyone goes by only one book written by Ravana on Rama, people will form an absolutely wrong opinion. So, consequently, one source alone should not be relied upon. You should rely upon multiple sources. If possible, 3 or more. So, consequently, the very fact that he has only quoted one reference is absolutely unacceptable from a research point of view. Number one. Number two, independent sources. Even if one were to quote multiple sources, if the sources themselves rely on an earlier source. For example, there is a Ramayana written by Valmiki. There is a Ramayana written by Kamba. There is a Ramayana that is written by Tulsidas. If Kamba Ramayana is dependent on Valmiki and Tulsi Ramayana is dependent on Valmiki, then they are not multiple sources, they are single source. So even if he says that there is a source here and there is a source in America, both are dependent on the same source. So consequently, even from the point of view of multiple sources, his usage of the material that he has taken recourse to is completely unacceptable. So neither from multiple sources point of view, nor from independent sources point of view, he has not really kept up with what is necessary from a research acceptability point of view. Third, contemporary or closer sources. For example, I am here. Somebody knows great Mahatma Gandhi. And somebody who writes in 2017 about Mahatma Gandhi, saying that Mahatma Gandhi's mother was Putli Bai. Now, will you believe this source, which is, the source is from India, and he has written about Gandhi 50, 60 years after he has passed away. Will you believe this source, or will you believe a source in 3400? 1400 years later, in Antarctica, somebody who says that Gandhi's mother was not Mutaliba. This is exactly what he has done. That is, there are contemporary sources, people who have lived in the same age in which Andal has existed, and there are also people who have lived 200, 300 years later who have written about it. So would you rather believe those sources, which are multiple millions in number, or one source that wrote about Andal in 21st century, one source, single source, not an independent source, multiple sources, there are multiple sources, and they are not contemporary. They are neither close to when Andal lived, nor are they contemporary. So would you rather believe millions of, hundreds of sources which have confirmed the existence of Andal and Periyar being her father, which are closer and contemporary, than one which was published in the 21st century? You would not. So either on the ground of multiple sources, or on the ground of independent sources, or on the ground of closer contemporary sources, and all the three sources, which are absolutely critical from a research acceptability point of view, Vairamuthu has singularly failed. Number one. Number two, he talks of Periyar not having adhered to Yapilakam. Before I go on, let me also remind Vairamuthu through this that I understand Yapilakam very well. By Yapilakam, what he means is there are four. There are many other things in Yapilakam, but the essence is there are four types. One is you have Asiriyappa, Venba, Kalippa, Vanjippa. For his knowledge, let me also say that I understand this very well. That is, in the case of Venba, Mamun Nerevardalum, Velamun Nervardalum, Kaimun Nervardalum, Venba. So we understand what he means. We also know Yapilakam as much as anybody knows. But the essence of Yapilakam, since I am really relating this in English, since my graduation and post-graduation were done in English, I really am not that conversant with certain higher levels of learning Tamil. I can't express, for example, scientific and maths terms in Tamil. And since this video is in English, let me continue in English. The point of Yapilakam is that which vowel or diphthong should follow which vowel or diphthong. It is as simple as that. But it is fairly accepted across the entire spectrum of lyricists and others that what is critical is the message rather than the package. Yapilakam has to do with package. It has nothing to do with message. For example, bread is more critical than, cake is more critical than the icing on the cake. The cake is the substance. Icing on the cake is the packaging. Yapilakam has to do with packaging. Independent of whether Periyar has adhered to Yapilakam or not, which I question, Vairamuthu judgment on. On this, I question Vairamuthu judgment. Nonetheless, in fact, he has to exactly quote the verse in which he has not really adhered to Yapilakam. But even if Periyar has not adhered to, it is like not having an icing on the cake. What we need to look at is only the cake. I'll give an example in English. There is a saying in English that says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Actually, what it means is, if it is not broke, don't fix it. So just because they have not expressed it in a grammatically acceptable fashion, can I say that there is no pearl of wisdom in this? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Excellent message. What it says is, if something is not broken, don't touch it. Why waste your time? And if you touch it, you will only mess it up. Excellent saying, a great pearl of wisdom. Should this great pearl of wisdom be completely not listened to just because the packaging isn't good, but just because you used ain't instead of it is not? I think it is absolutely fallacious. Even in Tamil, there are literatures where Yapilakam is not followed. For them, there is a separate section. For example, Siledai by Kalamega Pulvar. He writes something like this. That is, he compares, there is a particular verse which applies both to Jinjali, Yel, and snake, the Pambo. ஆடி குடத்தடையும் ஆடும்போதே இறையும் மூடித்திறக்கின் முகங்காட்டும் ஓடி மண்டை பற்றில் பரபரனும் பாரு பிள்ளாக்கும் உண்டான் உற்றிடுபாம் வெள்ளனவே போதும். You take this verse and you relate it to snake, it will absolutely fall into place, and it will fall into place as well for Jinjali as well. These things may not follow Yapilakam, but what is critical is, look at the greatness of the man. There is a verse that applies to one entity and also applies to an equally, completely different entity. So these things need not follow Yapilakam. The man, thinking that those who are reading, many of them may not be aware of Yapilakam and rationality, etc., etc. He has really uttered utter nonsense. I condemn him strictly, and consequently, if he says that there are no intellectual followers for Ma Andal or Ma Saraswati, he is absolutely mistaken. There are people like us. We have been keeping quiet for long because it never affected us directly. Now we believe that so far these rationalists, atheists, or those who go in the garb of scientifically tempered. They used to question many of our faiths. They used to question many of our gurus. We never bothered. Now they have started questioning the very existence of our gods. We are not going to let. And thirdly, rationals. I teach maths and in some cases science as well. So as much science and maths they understand, the rationalists, so do I. In fact, many of them don't understand. Frankly, those who say that God doesn't exist based on science, they neither understand science nor understand logic. Let me tell you an example. I'll give an example from maths, I'll give an example from science. But before that, let me tell you what the real truth is. The world is run by 1,000 plus maths, theorems and writers and 1,000 plus scientific principles. That is all. Many principles are actually subsets of various other principles which have been propounded. Let me quote maths. There is a particular branch of maths known as matrix algebra. Matrix algebra is a higher order algebra. Do you know what it is? The base of matrix algebra is simultaneous equations, which is at the lower level. And base of simultaneous equations is arithmetic. Addition, multiplication, division, subtraction. So that is why all mathematicians know that higher order maths is based on lower order maths, lower order maths is based on arithmetic. So what the point I am making is, even though you may see 10,000 principles, those 10,000 principles are basically founded on 1,000 principles. So all that the world has done in the last 5,000 years of recorded human history is to come out with just 1,000 maths principles and 1,000 odd science principles. I will quote one from science. There are 3 laws of Newton. The first law says that an object which is at rest will continue to be at rest, and an object which is in motion will continue to be in motion in a straight line at constant velocity unless acted upon by a net force. What it means is that an object which is in motion will continue to be in motion at constant velocity, meaning zero acceleration, unless acted upon net force. That is, if the velocity is constant, which means zero acceleration, there is no net force, meaning net force is zero. The second principle says force is equal to m into acceleration, meaning if force is zero, then automatically A is zero because every object will have some mass. So what the point I am making is, I am not trying to refute Isaac Newton, he is a genius. But the one principle that I am trying to drive home is that the first principle is implied by the second principle. So the 10,000 odd principles you see in science, 10,000 odd things you see in maths are basically based on 1,000 things, nothing more. So all that the humanity has arrived at in the last 5,000 years of recorded history is 1,000 core independent principles, nothing more in maths, 1,000 core independent principles in science. And thinking that we know everything about the universe or about the God is absolutely fallacious. The human, for example, we are not able to understand the creation, the universe. People say there is also a multiverse. If you can't even understand the creation, how can you really understand the creator? And creation automatically implies creator and vice versa. I don't want to get into this. This has to do with refutation of what Vairamuthu said. But the point is, many of the people who say whatever, he seems to belong to the genre that claims that they are rationalists, that they follow scientific principles, etc. Take it from me, their understanding of science is completely hollow and off-baked. So to refute that only, I just used a couple of quotations from maths. High order maths is based on low order maths, low order maths is based on arithmetic, same thing applies to science. Many of the principles founded on science are based on certain core principles. So at the core, there are only 1,000 odd theorems and writers in maths, 1,000 odd theorems and writers in science, over our principle. And consequently, so with this, I stop this video and take it from me, I've never really uploaded a video in my life in the past, nor do I intend to do in the future. All that I would do is, on this issue, since it has so far, so far they have been stopping short of saying anything about our gods. In the 70s, something happened to our God. That time I was a young boy, so I didn't know what to do. But now that they have really started attacking our gods, I'm not going to let go. And take it from me, for everything that is going to be, if there is a refutation for this, if at all there is one, I will send one more rebuttal. And let me remind him that I teach maths. I teach high order maths, I teach high order finance, and I understand science quite well. So with this, I just conclude my speech. Thanks for listening.